At the starting of the week, at Summit Talks, you'll hear them speak. It's only Monday. Negotiate.
Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. We have a little harbor seal coming in to greet us this morning to start this dive. My goal on this day was to load up my freezer with as many Sargo as I could. I was taking a flight later on this week to go back to New York to see my dad, and I thought I'd bring him back some Sargo because he loves small panfish. So that was the goal here. Trying to find some of those little early season inshore Sargo. Which is what I'm looking for here. We've got some black perch down the bottom of the screen. They're not bad eating, but they're a little bony, and I find that they have parasites, so I tend to leave them alone. You can see me just searching along the bottom, trying to find a nice Sargo to line up on, and it looks like I've spotted one here. And my safety was on. Perfect. Also looks like my bands are about to break there. Very nice. I think I ended up replacing those bands on a subsequent dive. I think one of them did actually end up snapping. The good thing about hunting for Sargo is you can clean them on the surface. I like to gut and scale before I put them in the bag because I tend to eat them whole, either baked or fried. And by the time you've done all that, you're breathed up and ready for your next dive. Just look how pretty it was on this day. Really excellent visibility down here in Southern California. We don't often get days like this. There's the California state fish, Garibaldi, and a school of small opali. I do love eating opali. They're vegetarian fish. Most people pass them up, but I find them to be really tasty. But these guys were all on the small side, so I was just admiring them a little bit, seeing if there was anything coming in at me from the deep. Doesn't look like there was. So right before this dive, first off, that's a little shark down there. But right before this dive, I saw a school of anchovies pass through this area, and I saw a handful of kelp bass following those anchovies around. So I thought I'd get the drop on them and use this big rock structure in front of me to get down in between the anchovies and the kelp bass and see if I could snag one. Another school of opali over to the right. You can always tell because they have one or two white dots on their back. So at this point I see just the tail of a kelp bass go around the edge of that rock. You can see all those anchovies out there in the distance. And so I'm coming around this rock thinking I'm gonna see a kelp bass sitting there, and there he is, just waiting and watching. He saw me way before I saw him, and he bolted off. This was another Sargo that I saw from the surface. They tend to hang out in grassy areas like this, which is also where the white sea bass like to hang out, so it's a great spot to hunt. Nice little stone shot there. Another one for the bag. So I'll do a little cleaning at the surface while I do my breathe up. Always good to follow what your dive computer says just for safety. What a pretty and tasty fish. So this was a clip that I liked. I occasionally will take sheep from this spot, but the sheep do a really good job of staying on these urchin populations out here, so I try not to take them from here. And you can see just some absolute fatty sheep off in the distance. Some really nice sexually mature males and a big group of females following along. I was lining up there on a kelp bass, but it was just a little too far out of my range. Here's one of my dive buddies. Always dive with a buddy if you can. I try not to dive alone. So this is another Sargo I saw from the surface. It's about as long as I'm willing to shoot. You'll see me line up on this shot here in a moment, but just sort of taking my time, seeing if there's anything around. Nice little school of zebra perch there. People will occasionally take those guys, but I find them to taste very fishy. And the stomach contents, if you are unfortunate enough to cut into them, are just rank. Really good way to stink out your whole house. That was a pretty long shot for me. I typically would not take a shot that long, but I felt pretty good about it. And then I saw this lobster from the surface. Now this was when lobster season was open. It closed a little over a month ago, so can't take these guys anymore, but man, they are tricky. Now, despite losing that lobster, the whole dive was not a loss. Got a nice little kelp bass hanging out in the distance, which I then missed. So. Can't win them all. Can't remember if this was a lobster I saw from the surface or a kelp bass that I was following down. But you'll see me find this little guy in a second. This is probably the hardest I've ever worked for a lobster. There he is. So I'm looking up to see one of my dive buddies on the surface. He sees me going for this lobster. Little did I know, this guy was some sort of kung fu master. So I know he's hung up in those leaves there, just sitting in that little pile of reeds. I'm just trying to see if I can push him out, but I just couldn't. Thankfully, though, as I hit the surface, my buddy goes straight down, right into that same little pocket to see if he can find them. Now check this out. Lobster goes right around his back and right back into the grass again. Those things are super smart. Or at least they're good at evading us. These are the California Spiny Lobster, by the way. Thankfully here I've snuck up behind him where he can't see me, and if you grab him by the tail, you can get him. This is a female, and we gave her a measure here in a second, which you'll see. Always good to keep a dive measure on you. You measure from behind the horns to the top of the shell, and they have to be larger than that in order to keep. This one was on the cusp. We remeasured again on the shore, and I decided it was just a little too close, plus it was a female, so we ended up throwing her back. Here's a nice kelp bass I saw from the surface. Man, look at those bands. Torn up. Good shot. The kelp bass population has been really healthy this year. I've been pleased to see it. I've been seeing tons and tons and tons of kelp bass out, which is great. The last 2 years it was a little depleted, but they're looking strong and healthy this year. Same with cabezon, seeing them all over the place. It's been a good year for fishing so far. Another nice school of zebra perch. Sometimes there'll be a Sargo hanging out in a big school of zebras like this, which is what I'm looking for. Typically the zebras will come in first because they're pretty bold, and then you'll have the Sargos come in after, followed by some opali and maybe the odd sheephead. So I think the count is 3 or 4 now. Loading up on these guys to take back with me. Here's a pretty typical presentation. Small school of 4 to 10 Sargo. Another nice little stone shot. Look at this kelp bass coming up to check out my Sargo. He's wondering what's going on. He was too small, but curious little bugger. Again, take some time, clean my fish on the surface while I breathe up. Here's a little lobster who was hanging in probably 6 feet of water. I just happened to see him as I was swimming by. Ended up getting my head tangled in the kelp. Always good. And this one was also barely on the cusp, so.
He's also on the cusp. We'll measure him at shore as well.
We ended up letting that one go. So as I'm coming back in, my buddy yells to me and says, I need a second shot. And then about, look at this, probably 4 feet of water, he shoots the biggest white sea bass I've ever seen. So I came in to help line up a second backup shot. And it's right at this point that my camera dies, but look at the size of this thing. Just an absolute hog. So after this day, I went home, packaged up all my fish, vacuum sealed them, and you can actually fly on the plane with vacuum sealed fish. Chucked them in the bag.
Bag has made it. All right.
Made it through security, no problem. And all the way to New York. If you made it this far, hope you enjoyed the video. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and I'll catch you on the next one.